you tired of living on autopilot? Are you ready to start embracing your one precious life? Welcome to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Odegaard. Welcome to the show. Thank you for hitting play on this episode of the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. Listen, I know there are tens of thousands of podcasts that you could be listening to, so I do not take for granted 1/2 of a second that you are here listening to this one. And if you like this show at all, if you've been listening for a while and this podcast has helped you in any way, or if you've enjoyed it, it would mean the world to me if you left a rating and review on the podcast, especially on Apple Podcast. I know this sounds like a pain in the ass thing, but I believe it is actually quite an easy thing to do. Will take you 1 to 2 minutes. And when you leave ratings, when you leave reviews, it helps other people to find the show. And by the way, thanks to you, this podcast, get this, it's trending in the top 100 in its category on Apple Podcast. Coming in at 97, if I'm not mistaken. And I only know this because a friend of mine pointed it out to me. And I'm grateful that she told me. Thank you, Amelia, because if she hadn't told me, I would not have known about this. I do not dig too deep into the data because I get upset or frustrated if a podcast episode didn't perform as well as I had hoped it would. Then I can take it personally. And I just find that it makes me a little bit nutty if I paid too much attention. So I'm grateful that she told me 97, baby, barely breaking the top 100. But this, honest to God, that exceeds my expectations. I never would have dreamed that people all around the world would be listening to this show and that it means something to you. So thank you. Thank you so much. When I worked in television, this is also, honest to God, true story, I never, ever checked the TV ratings. We'd get the overnight ratings where every day you'd get the numbers from yesterday's broadcast. You could see how well you did. And it breaks it down by the quarter hour where you'd say, oh, people tuned off even like 12 minutes after the hour. What was happening? I never looked, in part because I didn't want to know. And I had issues. I had problems. I took it personally, kind of like I still can with the podcast. I took it personally. And then it got to the point toward the end of my run there. I just didn't care. I just didn't care anymore. So, but I actually care that you listen to this show. So thank you very much. Okay. So something that makes me wake up to my life is music. Oh, how I love music. I love how music can change my mood after just a few beats. Does that happen for you too? You hear one of your favorite songs, upbeat, snappy little tune, and you hear it and you go, yes, and your mood has changed. I love sad music too. I love music that makes me feel something inside of me, that makes me I feel it in my soul, you know? And the music of singer-songwriter Edwin McCain does that to me. I feel something when I hear his songs. Now, you know Edwin McCain best for his hit songs, I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll stop. And I could not ask for more. Don't you love that song? Oh, I love that song so much. Those songs are two of the biggest love songs in the history of pop music. They are played at weddings to this day, and those songs were hits in 1998 and 1999. People still love them. You know, you probably know all the words. Edwin and I first met when he appeared live on the TV show that I was hosting. He was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live. He was doing a concert. So he came on our TV show to promote the concert. And so he did a song and I got to interview him. He blew me away. He sounded so good. He was hilarious, super cool. We became friends after that. I have seen him in concert several times. He puts on a killer show. If you ever have the opportunity to go hear Edwin McCain perform live, you should take it. Even during the pandemic, he'd been doing live concerts online once a week and thousands of people would tune in, you know, and he's not doing that anymore. And eventually he'll tour again. He's still recording music. He's working on a new album. He has a land management company. I mean, he's an interesting fella. Let me tell you, he's an interesting guy for sure. Edwin used to tour with Darius Rucker when Darius was with Hootie and the Blowfish. So you might be thinking, okay, why talk to Edwin McCain on the Wake Up to Your Life podcast? I'll tell you why. Because he has a powerful story of living on autopilot himself. And this was even during the height of his fame. He was living on autopilot because he was abusing alcohol. He talks very openly about that, his struggles with addiction, substance abuse, and his path to sobriety. And he talks about how fatherhood was really his wake up to your life moment. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with the incredible, talented singer-songwriter and my friend, Edwin McCain. Oh, Edwin, you're just telling me about the joys of homeschooling before I hit record. How's that going for you?
Yeah, I'm the worst high school teacher in the state of South Carolina right now. I expect to have my credentials stripped at any moment. We anticipate about a 30% graduation rate here at the McCain School for wayward children.
Why do you say this?
The whole system is kind of messed up because I don't get a notification that they haven't turned something in until it's too late for them to turn it in. So what's the point? I mean, and honestly, the worst part about it is I'm real transparent with my kids. So they know that I graduated high school, the last of my class, and I went to college. I was enrolled in college for a little while and then just, went out into the world. And so, they understand that, dad managed to figure it out. So, but what I keep having to try to tell them is, look, if you're a dependable human being and you do what you say you'll do, you can pretty much accomplish anything you want to.
This is not the first time that we have worked together.
No, you made a terrible mistake and had me come co-host the show with you one time, and to prove what awkward, some kind of contrast for the professional host and then the awkward reader of the teleprompter. That was me. No, that was fun, man. I love trying new things, man. I'm all about it.
True, Edwin. I invited him to come co-host the TV show that I was hosting at the time. I don't know if you know, Edwin, I quit a few months ago. So now I'm doing this stuff full time. But Edwin came and co-hosted the show with me. I thought you were great. You thought you were awkward. You got really self-aware, thinking like, can people see my nose hairs? I can't read this prompter. What the hell is going on? Why did I say yes?
So this has been so interesting for me that because I've never really engaged social media until this pandemic thing, and I never really I avoid mirrors, so I just never really spent a lot of time worrying about my outward appearance, and then being around the show, I was like, man, because it really matters. I mean, it's television, and I was like, God, how are you gonna fix this? I'm thinking, and so you had to have gone through some changes, having to be so hyper focused on appearance. That's because that's an unnatural state, right? I mean, there has to be because it is. I mean, all the television I've been around, it feels like there's so much emphasis placed on appearance and how things are sort of portrayed as opposed to what we're portraying.
So can we talk some music in your career and bring listeners up to speed kind of on, where you've been and what you're doing? It's the 90s and your rise to fame is pretty significant. I mean,
it takes 10 years for overnight success. Yeah. So, I tell people all the time, like there's a book that Malcolm Gladwell wrote called Outliers that I think is a critical read, especially if you're in your 20s, because it sort of highlights the importance of timing, right? I mean, I think when we were was as important as what we were, as far as musically or as far as anything we did. uh, and I worked really hard, and I played the game, and I went, and I used to have notebooks, and I'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, start calling program directors. I loved that challenge of going after the radio ads and doing all that stuff. And I think if you talk to anybody at Atlantic, I think they'll tell you that between me and Phil Collins, let's say that it was a race who worked radio harder. And I'm proud of that. Right. But
when you say work radio, was it trying to get them to play your song?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So radio promotion back in the 90s, it was all about terrestrial radio. And so the gatekeepers were the program directors for each of the stations. And that was a little bit before Clear Channel and sort of consolidated all the ownership of radio stations, and it became, iHeartRadio or whatever. But so each city had a couple of guys that were basically the gatekeepers, and my job was to figure out a way to talk them into playing my music. And I literally just pounded the phones in the morning until I just got to a point. I'm like, dude, you got to either add it or I'm just going to be the biggest pain in your butt. I mean, and I did ridiculous stuff. Like I played pool parties, and I played on the top of vans, and I played in a Krispy Kreme drive-through. I did a drive-through wedding. Like, so there was a priest at one window, and then I was at the second window, and you drive in and get married at the first window, and then drive up to me, and I'd play a little bit of my song. I mean, I did stuff like that.
This is before you're famous. This is before I'll Be is a hit.
No, this is when I'll Be was a hit too. Okay. There was because once you get a program director to play it, now the only answer, if they come up with some cockamamie promotional thing, you say yes, because he added your song and he's playing it. And I didn't care. And so the word, my drummer has kids. Like I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Like a lot of guys in my band were grown up adult people that had grown up adult lives that were counting on me to provide them a good living. So the only answer was yes. And I put in tons and tons of work, and I never, ever, ever said no. Now that led to, I didn't know how to say no. So I said yes until I was ill, and I took it far too far. And that led me into the whole substance abuse, alcoholism thing. And so that was a whole other thing I had to unravel.
So I want to talk to you about that. To you about that, Edwin, because so 98, I'll Be, huge hit. 99, the following year was I Could Not Ask for More, correct? Yeah. Also a huge hit. These songs are still played at weddings today. We'll talk more about the music in a moment, but talk about the pressure that you did feel from, you mentioned your bandmates were relying on you to provide a living, like you had to crank out hits. I would think that Atlantic Records, your label, had some pressure on you too, like, come on, dude, keep it coming. Like you're cranking out these hits. Like, did you feel that? And what did you do with that pressure?
Well, what I did, I had sort of taken it into all right, nobody's going to work harder than me, so I would do a band tour, and then basically all that money went to the band and crew and the, paying for the buses and all that stuff. And then, so I could make my money, I would go out and play acoustic shows. And so it was basically around the, touring 365, right? I was on the road all the time. Mm-hmm. And I had been on the road for 15 years at that point. And in 15 years, you get to know every fun person in every city you go to. And there's a whole crowd of people that are anticipating your return. And I'm hated by wives and girlfriends across this great nation, by the way. And so, but each town you go to, there's somebody they're planning their big night out. That's their big night out. And you can't let them down. And so it was real easy to string together a decade of big nights out. And I didn't think anything of it because it didn't really affect my performance. So like I could go out. I didn't drink before shows and I didn't do any of that stuff. But and I could, I'm in a profession where I can show up in a Viking helmet and a tutu and nobody's going to say anything. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be a great night. Any other job, I get fired, Mm-hmm. But so when I adopted my first son, my wife was like, look, you got to tone this whole thing down. I was like, yes, of course.
So at this point, did you think your drinking and partying was out of control, or did you just think I was just going to see my boy in Nashville? We had a fun night out. Then I saw my boy over in Toledo and we had a fun night out. That's kind of how it was for you.
The more ridiculous the story, the better. Everybody laughs about it. Ha ha. But then when I adopted my first son, obviously, and my wife was immediately pregnant with our second. And so my circumstances changed considerably. And so I took 3 months off and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to be home. And so I was taking care of my son and he was sleeping on my chest every night, and I was just doing the dad thing. But, and the thing, and my wife, I was like, of course, yes, of course I will tone all of this stuff down. And so the first 3 or 4 months, and I was home every night and doing the dad thing. But then I recognized that when I went back out on the road, I couldn't tell you what was going to happen if I had a drink. Like I could have a couple of beers and go home and go to bed and it would be fine. Or I could go out and it would turn into some 3-day, marathon. And I couldn't legitimately tell you which of those things would happen if I had a drink. And then at that point I was like, oh, we got a problem here. And then you start trying to control it. And there's a pattern that occurs once that recognition goes off, because it is a terrifying moment to realize that you're not actually in control of your consciousness. There's a duality, there's a split that occurs, and it's like, now I got the enemy's inside the wire. It's in between my ears here. And you go through this weird sort of rationalization process. Like, first of all, well, I'm going to control it. There's attempts to control. And then there's just like a weird sort of, I used to call it the Hemingway clause. You invoke the Hemingway clause. Well, there are a lot of alcoholic people and you just decide to wear it, and then that doesn't really work. And it just keeps devolving and getting worse and getting worse. And it's almost like quicksand, because like the more you struggle against it, the worse it gets, right? And then it leads to this really dark spot where you start to question whether or not you should even be here. Mm-hmm. And then when that starts to happen, that's the final stage, and you have to make a decision about how you're going to get out of this. And at that point, I just said, there's got to be a better story to tell than this. Then if my kids need to hear something better than your dad died a hopeless alcoholic. And I checked into a treatment center in Atlanta called Talbot. And that was, 13, almost 14 years ago. So, it works and you can recover. And I'm real open about this thing because I think there's a big stigma around substance use disorder, and a lot of people that could get help don't get help because they don't want to be labeled alcoholic or an addict. And, I get it, because nobody, when I tell stories on stage now, I can feel the crowd pull back, and I always tease them. I'm like, it's not contagious. You're going to be okay. I can talk about it.
It makes them uncomfortable, you think?
Every night if I talk about it on stage, I feel the crowd kind of start to shrink, and I go, it's okay. No, nobody, you're not going to catch it. Right. The reason I'm talking about it is there might be somebody in this audience that's been struggling a little bit. And I'm standing up here to tell you that you can get out. You can get out of it. Yeah.
I love that you talk about it. I've been at your shows. I've heard you tell stories. I love that you talk about it so openly for that very reason, because I think that so many people do struggle with it. They don't want to identify with being an alcoholic, but what is the saying that you don't have alcohol you don't have to have a problem with alcohol for alcohol to be a problem, or something like that, that it can still be, it works its way in your life. The next thing you know, you're drinking every night to alleviate stress. And that's kind of sounds like that's what was happening with you. It was just fun at first. And then it became this pattern.
It was my only sort of respite from the pressure. So I tell people all the time, like, the why you drink is almost as important as the fact that you drink. You know what I mean? People that go out and have a couple of drinks because they're celebrating and it's fun, rarely get into this trouble. When you start to modulate emotion with substances or with activities, because it's not just, there's a line that's crossed. And what happens is your midbrain starts to encode shopping or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, these sort of coping, these soothing behaviors. And once that starts to happen, man, it's real hard to turn that one back until, it's a lot of behavior modification. And then, you have to work on awareness and seeing patterns but the upside to it is that once you sort of develop those skills to understand these, how to deal with substance use disorder, it actually applies to everything in my life. Like I realized too that it wasn't just alcohol. There were a lot of reactive things that I was doing that aren't, that are based around anger or frustration, those things, and that are just unnecessary. And
so this is the wake up to your life moment. I think this is this is what we talk about on the podcast. It's all of these things. It's recognizing like, whoa, there I go again. I'm flying off the handle. Whoa, what the hell just happened? Right. Yeah. So what do you do now if you, instead of, because you're feeling your feelings, right? Instead of drinking them away or freaking out, what do you do instead? Like, how do you process this?
Acceptance is the key. So now I sort of take this Buddhist approach of I'm not in the surf fighting every wave that shows up, right? I'm just sitting on the beach enjoying the view. Right. So they're like when the quote unquote bad things happen, because everything that comes into your life, you define it, you give it energy, you give it its designation. We are so busy classifying every single thing that comes to us that we're, the acceptance piece is kind of pushed into the background. And so I accept that everything that occurs in my life is just part of this large process, and some things are good and some things are bad, and some things that are bad end up being good later on, and some things that are great end up being bad later on. And there's no time is the only constant. And so I try to just acknowledge that it takes all of it. It takes all of these things that are occurring, and try to be present. I still make terrible mistakes, and I still get frustrated with my kids and yell at them. And then I have to go back and go, look, that was probably too much. I don't know if you feel like this, but I pretty much carry around my 15-year-old self in an adult body. And
yeah. I totally get it.
I find myself in meetings with 30-year-olds, and I look at them like they're the adults in the room. I'm like, ooh.
You're like, wait a minute, I'm the grown-ass man here.
Yeah, and they're looking at me like, what? This old man is weird. Like,
I am very in touch with my 15-year-old self. Like, she's always bubbling right here below the surface. So,
but I think it's okay because
all of her tics, she's, with her Tourette syndrome and all those things, she's always right there. So, but I'm able to, not to get so woo-woo, but to nurture her and be like, it's okay. I know you're nervous. I know you're self-conscious. I know you're anxious. I got it now. 50-year-old Colleen's in the driver's seat. I got it.
And so that's really great that you talk about the Tourette's thing. And I want to tell you a story. I actually made a huge mistake one time. I used to do Peter Jacobson, the golfer, is a really good friend of mine, and his wife has Tourette's, and I made some little fumble in a interview that we were doing, and I made a joke like, "Oh, I have Tourette's." Well, and I think a lot of people make that joke because it's somehow acceptable, it's like and she very nicely, the nicest. She is so wonderful. And she came over and she was like, you probably shouldn't make that joke. I have Tourette's and I realized later how, I was in my 20s and you just say stupid stuff. And I remember later just going, wow, that is one of those cultural things where everybody thinks it's okay to make that joke because Tourette's seems so rare. Like it's one of those things like you think that's such a rare thing. Nobody's really, but it's a lot more common than you think. And the reason you don't notice it is because people that have it have worked really hard at overcoming it and dealing with it. And so I extend that apology to you for me just saying something stupid like that in an interview. So embarrassing to say things like that.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that story. You're right. People just don't know. They don't know. And to your point, yes, people with Tourette syndrome where it's not necessarily obvious, we do work very hard too. I do a lot of theft that look like normal movements, but they're to mask tics. I dig my fingernails into the back of my neck. I've got a big scar back here. I dig in my left arm, my left leg. I do a lot of things that look like I'm doing them on purpose. It's just to suppress the tic until I can let loose. So,
and I think too, like, so your experience with Tourette's sort of, trial by fire, showed you that there is there's a duality in our consciousness. You know what I mean? There is like that. It took me for years to like, I always thought that everything that went on in between my ears was mine. Right. And that's just not true. But that applies to, how we respond to things. Right. I used to think that every time I got mad I deserve to be mad. I'm allowed to be mad at that. And that's not true either. I'm deciding a lot of this thing. I'm deciding a lot of the things that are happening based on stimulus and
you're making a choice. Yes, that is something that I talk about on this podcast, that the actual event, the thing that happens, is neutral in and of itself. It's what you think about it that makes you feel angry. Right.
Right. And a lot of that anger, I discovered later on is just ego protection. If you have a fragile ego, then anger is the first defense to keep people away from. But what that does is stunt growth, because every single step of progress I've ever made was preceded by failure. I honestly, the catalog of failure that is my life would read like a tragedy, but I can literally point to 3 steps forward of success following. And that's just what it is. I'm lucky to have failed as many times as I have.
Well, you've also had a lot of success, but what would you say though, Edwin, to listeners about failure? Because I did an episode called Fear of Failure, and how I believe that when we are so afraid of it that we don't even put ourselves out there and try. We don't create anything. You don't write a hit song. You don't put out a podcast. You don't write a book. You don't paint your painting. You don't go for the new job. You don't ask out the girl, right? If you're afraid of failure, it keeps you from living your life. So what would you say about being afraid of failure?
I've learned to embrace it in every way. Like, I don't wait to try anything. I don't do market. I don't market research. I have an idea. I feel strongly enough about it. I begin. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And that's always been my mantra. Like, look, we're going to do the 3 things that are important here. We're going to take the first step. We're going to ask others for help, and we're going to be dependable. And other than that, that's it. Like, that's all. Those are the three components that I require to take those steps. And then the rest of it, it either works or it doesn't. But it does. And if it doesn't, the fact that it didn't is there is a treasure chest full of learning.
I started to believe that things in my life were happening for me instead of to me. Like, this is happening. Yeah. What if you can believe this is happening for me? Not, man, this is happening to me. Shit, this sucks. This is terrible. No. What if it's happening for you?
Yeah. You are happening to you. Like I tell you all the time, the world isn't happening to you. That's You're happening to you. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not an outward. And I think the greatest lesson I learned in rehab is that the world doesn't care anything about me. Like, I left and was like, the entire world when I left to go to rehab, I was thinking, well, the whole world's going to fall apart without me. I don't understand how anything in this universe is going to exist for 90 days without me. So, but I guess we're going to have to try that. And I stayed in treatment for like 120 days. I ended up working with young adults. I was having such a good time. They basically had to pry me out of there because I was enjoying it. And I got back, and I had friends of mine from high school that are like, where you been? Like, nobody even noticed I was gone. Right? And in my egocentric mind, I was so convinced that everything, the whole thing was going to just grind to a halt without me. And that's just not true. And my 15-year-old, he gets really stressed out about like thinking other people are watching him. And like when he's participating in sports, I'm like, dude, no one notices. No one cares. Like, the only person that's putting this much pressure on you is you. I mean,
I wish everyone would understand that, from kids to grown-ass adults, because we still have it, but we're all the stars of our own show, but ain't nobody paying that much attention to you. And it is very freeing when you go, oh, screw it, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to dance like no one's watching, right? I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to play sports. I'm going to try. I might miss. Okay, that's all right. It doesn't matter.
But think about the people that other people tell stories about. It's not the guy that showed up early for the train and boarded on his boarding number and sat down and unfolded his newspaper and started reading it. But everybody's watching the dude that's running down the platform as the train's pulling away, like, stuff falling out of the bag, takes a flying leap, grabs onto the last rung of the ladder. Like, the people that seem to be, they're the outsized personalities and the people that make life fun and interesting, and that aren't afraid to absolutely crater in an attempt to do something spectacular. And I've always sort of appreciated that ethic, right? This might not work, but man, it's going to be fun to give it a shot.
But in the 90s, when you became so famous, and we talked a little bit about this, about the pressure you felt to maybe was it keep it up? I don't know, to keep cranking out hits. You didn't feel that? Okay.
No, because what happened after we had the second kind of, I guess, quote unquote hit, it was real obvious that I was not going to be happy in the major label world, right? I did not care enough about like the fashion part of it. And it's real important. If you want to be super famous, you really need to care about fashion. You need to care about the clothing component. And I know that sounds weird, but it's true. It's 100% true. And you need to be in touch and validate all of those paradigms, because if you don't, they won't help you. And you need all of those. You need the fashion world. You need the broadcast world. You need the radio world. You need the press, the print world. And if you don't exhibit enthusiasm for all of those paradigms, they don't appreciate that. Right. And so like for me, I was like, well, I don't care about that. All I care about is playing music and writing these songs. And in my mind, I was kind of being a purist, but I wasn't participating in the other aspects of what it takes to work at that level. But also I had this feeling, I was like, this is an unnatural state of being for me. Right. So I have friends that are great at being famous. Like Darius Rucker is amazing at being famous. He loves it. That lifestyle suits him. And he has a normal, healthy life in that world. And it wouldn't fit me. And I felt incredibly uncomfortable in that world, and it showed. And it got to a point where the president of the record label, he'd been around, he knew the difference. And he called me one morning. He said, "What are we going to do with you?" I was like, "I don't know, but whatever it is isn't going to be working for you." Right. I'm going to go back to being independent, and I probably cost myself millions and millions of dollars, but I'm still here and I feel like myself.
If you're looking to buy a house, you know that it's a tough market for buyers out there. Bobby Sisk from the Bobby Sisk Homes team at Nestlewood Realty in Charlotte will help your bid stand out from the rest so you don't lose out on your dream home. And Bobby can connect you with a real estate professional in your city wherever you live. Go to BobbySisk.com or follow Bobby on Instagram at Bobby Sisk Homes. That's SISK. Decorate your home for spring with Black Lion. The home decor store has gorgeous accessories to help you celebrate the new season. You'll also find the best gifts for Easter baskets at Black Lion right now. The store is located in Charlotte, but if you can't get there in person, go to blacklion.com or follow them on Instagram at Black Lion Stores.
Edwin, okay, will you play us a little song?
Yes. Strength in your eye, color them wonderful, step into my breath. Emeralds from mountains, thrust towards the sky, never feeling dead. Tell me we belong together, dress it up with the trappings of love. I'll be captivated, hang from your lips, still on the gallows, heartache that ain't from above. And I'll be your crying shoulder, I'll be love suicide, and I'll be better when I'm old. I'll be greatest fan of your life. And I dropped down, burned up, on my way back from the dead. Tuned in, turned on, remember things you said.
have to tell you, I'm so glad that you don't get tired of playing that song because we all love hearing it.
No, that song is like a miracle. It rescued me. It rescues me every day. I mean, it's the reason I get to still go out here and play my little shows. And I tell people all the time, I tell Darius, I give him a hard time all the time. I was like, I don't know why you spend all this time writing all these songs. All he needs one good one.
It'll pay for the kids' college. It'll take places. Yeah.
I joke around with my kids. I was like, this song's gonna pay for one of you to go to college or rehab.
Yeah. Okay, Edwin, where do you want people to find you? You're into TikTok now. This is your thing?
I'm on TikTok. I embarrass my children with being on TikTok every day. It is so much fun. I really have been inspired by how many great artists there are on TikTok, young artists that are just going for it, and they're being so open and honest about their emotions. And actually, back to our other conversation, there's some really incredible influencers, or I don't say influencers, but people talking about their experience with Tourette's and opening up the dialogue about what it is. And there's a lot of people talking about mental health issues and being transparent and being very vulnerable and putting themselves out there and explaining what their struggles are. And I've been so inspired by that platform because I think it allows even people that are showing up with a negative intention have to hear other people's truth. And sometimes it gets sometimes people are arguing, but the way the format works, people are I feel like it's a conduit for better understanding. And I might be just being too optimistic, but I really have seen a lot of peaceful warriors, is like what I like to call them. Dan Millman wrote a book years ago called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And I've always sort of gravitated towards empathetic people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and go to work for just because something's right. Not for any hope, not for any transactional reason, just because it's the right thing to do.
You are that way. I mean, we work together at a charity event for children in foster care. I serve on a board called Congregations for Kids, which helps children in foster care families in Charlotte. And you came to perform at our big fundraiser. And we had that year, we had hardly any money. I mean, we had to pay you way less than what you would normally take for a gig. And you were willing to do it because you have a heart for adoption.
Well, I'm adopted.
I know.
So, yeah.
And you said yes. And we said, all you have to do is play 3 songs. And you did a full blown concert. And
I loved it. It was great. I was giving you amazing. A hard time too.
You did.
It was funny too, because a lot of people didn't realize that we were that close. I saw a couple of people get a little like, what? Like they were getting you got some pretty serious fans. Like I could feel like there was some pushback coming from me teasing you a little bit. I was like, I think Colleen's army here is getting ready to throw me out.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I can't wait till we can do something like that again, and you can be touring again, and everybody should go download your music. Do yourselves a favor. Listen to Edwin McCain. Follow him on TikTok.
Yeah. We're on Spotify and all that stuff. Yeah. So I'm busy putting together this new record. I'll let you know when it's out.
Oh, I can't wait. And I mean that sincerely. I do want to hear it. I'm not just saying that. I actually do want to hear your new stuff.
Well, I tell people all the time, we don't make good records, but we make lots of them. There's bound to be something on one of them you like.
Oh, Edwin McCain, you're awesome. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. So go listen to Edwin's music. Colleen, why are you still talking? The show's over. The music played. The show's done. Because I wanted to tell everybody that when the interview with Edwin was over, we kept talking for another 2 hours. just chatting and catching up, talking about Christianity. We talked about Buddhism. We talked about negative thought patterns and how to break them. Talked more about addiction. It was just really interesting. Music business. Did I say that already? Oh, it was really cool. I wanted to sing with him. I wanted to sing I Could Not Ask for More. Don't you love that song? These are the moments I thank God that I'm alive. And these are the moments I'll remember all my life. I found all I've waited for. And I could not ask for more. Colleen, who sings that song? Edwin McCain. Yeah, let's keep it that way. You've been listening to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast, produced by Andy Go of Go Joe Studios. He's the best. I'm your host and executive producer, Colleen Odegaard. I'm a life coach and a video media coach. If you want to work with me, send me an email, colleen@wakeuptoyourlife.net. I have a few one-on-one life coaching sessions available right now, and I also have group coaching that is available right this minute. So send me an email, colleen@wakeuptoyourlife.net. And do me a solid, would you? If you like this podcast, please leave a rating and review. Doing so helps other people find this show. Again, thank you for listening.